So good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me, Janire and organizing team to this event, to have the opportunity to be here today with this group of leaders to discuss how can we accelerate women's participation in business leadership. My name is Alfonso García Mora. I'm the Vice President for Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean in IFC, as you know, the private sector arm of the World Bank Group. This is a topic that is really close to my day-to-day work at IFC. You know that IFC has a specific objective and target, which is to dedicate a significant amount of the financing that we provide to the private sector in all the regions in which we work, directed to gender equality, which can be done either through specific financial institutions that provide the financing or the funding to women entrepreneurs, or that can be done through changing, for instance, the corporate governance in many companies that receive financing from IFC, and as a condition for that financing, we try to influence on the governance of those companies. So I think that gender equality and economic inclusion, we know that it is not just a social and a moral imperative, probably, but also an economic need. An economic need and something that also pays off. I think that there are many reports and research that has already proved that having more women on boards, women on leadership positions in firms, provide, or there is a direct correlation and positive correlation between that and the performance of those firms, and that and the sustainability and ESG compliance of those firms. So this is something that I really believe that we need to move more, that we need to show more, to really make the case that this is not just a social thing or a moral issue that we could agree or disagree, but that actually also for those that do only care about the financial or economic performance, it also pays off. And I think that this is something that we should really internalize much more in our day-to-day. Because the reality is that we are very far away from where we should. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, we went many steps back in terms of gender equality in many regions. I'm sure that you have seen the recent World Bank report on women, business, and the law. And it is quite shocking that only 14 economies in the world have gender parity, legal gender parity. Only 14 economies in the world. When one thinks that we have almost close to 200 economies in the world, and only 14 of them have a legal gender parity, there is something that we are probably not doing well. Or there is a lot that needs to be done beyond what we see. But equally shocking is that 2.4 billion women live in economies that in which men do not have the same rights than women, or women do not have the same rights than men. 2.4 billion women. This is quite a shocking number as well when we think about where we are and what is pending. And the third thing that I wanted to mention is that when one looks at the numbers and what has been done recently, it is quite shocking that there are many countries that have gone in the opposite direction. That previous granted rights are being reversed, and there is some reform fatigue. In fact, we estimate that we will need 50 years to achieve legal equality if we continue the path of reforms in which we are today. 50 years more if we follow the same path of reforms. So a lot that needs to be done. And this is a very macro analysis and very macro numbers. No? But when one goes a little bit down into the private sector data, it is also quite surprising to see that we still have only 25% of managerial positions globally are held by women, 25, 1-4. And this is exactly the same number that we had in 1995. So when we try to claim victory and we say, no, we are moving in the same direction, maybe we are, but there are some good data that actually question if we are really going in the right direction or we really need to do much more than what we are doing. Again, only 25% of women are in managerial positions globally. And actually, when I go down to my day-to-day in Latin America, I have to share with you, it is quite shocking that in many of the meetings that I have with private sector, there are still only men in the room. And this is something that really worries me because in a way, I really believe that we need to cascade down the process of bringing more women to leadership positions. It is not only to provide the solutions at the bottom level of the pyramid or at the bottom level of the economy, but also we need to lead by example. And this lead by example, in many cases, in many economies, is not there at all. And there are good practices in some countries that could help us to move the private sector in that direction. No? Other numbers that you may also know, there is only 46% of women of working age that participate in the labor market. Less than half of the women participate in the labor market, whereas the ratio for the percentage for men is close to 75%. So there is clearly, these are clearly numbers that should alert us that there is a lot more to do. Thinking on financing and thinking on the panel that we had before, as you know, IFC is a development finance institution, and we estimate that the gap for finance for women entrepreneurs or for women-led SMEs is $1.5 trillion globally. $1.5 trillion. And there are many constraints and there are many bottlenecks. There are many things that we have already identified, unconscious bias, lack of mentoring, lack of possibilities, lack of education, etc., that will explain and will help us to go in the right direction. So I don't really want to take much more time because it was just a closing remark. My closing remarks are really a call for action. I really think that we are not where we should be. And in the already well entered into the 21st century, we still have only, again, 14 economies in the world where we have legal parity between men and women. There is 1.5 trillion finance gap for women entrepreneurs, and there is only 25% of women in the managerial positions globally. So 3 numbers that should actually make us reflect that there is a lot that we need to do, that we need to do together, absolutely. We need the private and the public sector. We need to lead by example, and we need to work on the bottom of the pyramid. There are many things that needs to be done, and only by working together we will achieve the objective of really having a real world of equality and parity. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be with all of you. And I just want to touch on one of the most important issues of our time, and one I think we need to be discussing when we're talking about innovation and leadership, which is the role of women in addressing climate change. Women have a very special role to play, including helping the women most impacted in the global South. We need greater women-led solutions, women in decision-making, and the mobilization to address the effects of climate change on the future of our world. Women are one of the best yet underutilized forces to combat the climate crisis. So no matter where we live, we are still seeing with greater ferocity weather of violent storms, extreme droughts, wildfires, melting glaciers, floods, and so much more. The last years have been the hottest on record, and the world is not on track to keep the global warming to within 1.5 degrees. We are going in the wrong direction, and this has been called by the UN Code Red for humanity, a wake-up call for all of us. So climate change affects everybody, there's no doubt about that, but it disproportionately impacts women who often bear the brunt of climate effects, largely because of their socioeconomic status. In much of the world, women are the key providers of food, water, and energy, and increasingly affected by the severe weather conditions created by climate change. It is a threat multiplier for already vulnerable women in highly climate-affected areas, destroying livelihoods and increasingly leading to displacement. And with displacement, we are seeing growing conflicts because of the competition for vanishing resources. Today, women comprise 80% of climate migrants. As a result, it is a rapidly growing security issue. Thousands of women and their families in the Northern Triangle of Central America, for example, are faced with soaring temperatures, droughts, and land that is no longer arable. And they are being forced to leave their homes and to migrate. And this is true in so many places. This is why this issue has been called a threat multiplier. However, women are not just victims, and this is what I want you to take away today. We are leading climate solutions, no matter what one's status. Women are uniquely positioned to contribute to resource management and effectively mitigate climate conflict risks in the community and at the household level. Their localized knowledge and experiences are critical. Any green economy agenda, and that's one we all confront, should ensure that women have equal access to renewable energy and provide support for women-owned businesses in climate. Today, women are installing and maintaining as businesses many electric power grids. They are involved in the sales and maintenance of clean cook stoves, the installation of solar panels. Small-scale renewable energy generation is making industry more accessible to women. Women are also working to rebuild resilient cities and mount conservation projects. In short, where women can overcome the structural barriers to their participation, they are uniquely positioned to contribute to sustainable natural resource management, climate resilient communities, and peace and stability. I direct the Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace, and Security, and we have done a number of studies to document how women are making a difference in climate change, and you can find these on our website. I'm thrilled to be here today, but also to have following me to this podium, Dr. Nawal Al-Husani of the United Arab Emirates. She's a leader on gender and climate change. And the UAE, her country, will hold the presidency of COP28, which is the international big climate meeting, which will take place at the end of the year in Dubai. Much work is already in progress, but in recent months and recent meetings at the United Nations, there was especially a high-level meeting co-sponsored by our institute. Dr. Al-Jaber, the UAE Special Envoy for Climate and the president of COP28, noted the centrality of gender equality, ensuring a just energy transition. And he said, we want a COP28 to be a COP of action, a COP of impact, a COP that has transformational progress with it. And there is no way to achieve this, he said, without a fully inclusive approach, one that puts gender equality front and center. Women's leadership is absolutely critical. So my call to action to all of you is that climate change requires the full participation of everyone at every level, and that includes each and every one of us doing all we can in all the platforms that we occupy. It means advocating for investing in women at the grassroots level, particularly in the global south, so they can be leaders in renewable energy. It means promoting women's leadership on climate-related initiatives and reducing barriers to inclusion. Yes, it includes mentoring, entrepreneurship, and technology. It means engaging with climate groups like Mothers Out Front, mobilizing for a livable climate. It means investing in clean energy and supporting ESG. You know, there's a saying that in the rising of the women is the rising of us all. I want to say today that in the rising of the women in the fight against climate change is the saving of our planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, some of you may be aware that we are actually now at the holy month of Ramadan. And for those who observe it, there are so many elements and dimensions for this time of the year and most importantly, it is actually a time of reflection. So, as we close this day, I would like to bring this element of reflection to our conversation, to the conversation and dialogues that we have engaged in this Women Entrepreneurs Forum. So let us reflect on the vital role that women entrepreneurs play in achieving sustainable development and combating climate change. As we have heard, we have only a small window of opportunity left to mitigate the worst effects of climate change and to drive the lasting transformations that can yield more inclusive, more empowered, and more diverse societies, economies, and communities. So, to do this, we must work collectively to enable women to lead the change, to lead the charge across all sectors. When it comes to climate action, we need a rapid and comprehensive transition to renewable energy, and I cannot emphasize that enough. We need to reduce emissions across all sectors, and we need to support women across the world with access to energy, education, and vital infrastructure. The renewable energy sector is a case in point. Thanks in part to the leadership of women entrepreneurs and leaders, renewable energy agenda has gathered great momentum in communities around the world, especially those on the front line of climate change. According to the recent report by the International Renewable Energy Agency, that's IRENA, women hold 32% of senior management positions in renewable energy sector compared to just 21% in the energy sector overall. This is a testimony to the important role that women business and women entrepreneurs play in driving innovation and creating new models that accelerate the transition to renewable energy. However, as we heard, we cannot afford to be complacent. There is still much work to be done to ensure that women entrepreneurs have the support and resources they need to become pillars of prosperity and leaders of climate-resilient communities and economies. We just heard from my friend that COP28 in the UAE will play a major role in putting women at the heart of climate diplomacy and solution-based approach to the biggest challenges we face as we strive to deliver a COP for all. I hope to see as many as possible of you in the UAE so we can mobilize the collective passion and will to empower female change makers in the multilateral process to ensure our voices are heard at the top tables of decision making. As we move forward, let us commit to building a more inclusive and sustainable future, one that empowers women, entrepreneurs to drive innovation and create new solutions to the challenges we face. This forum has an important role to play in this effort as a platform of sharing ideas, building networks, and identifying new opportunities for collaboration. So let us take lessons we have learned from today's sessions, use them to drive progress in the years ahead. Together, we can build a more sustainable and equitable world for ourselves and for the future generations. Thank you so much.
Well, time flies. Thank you so much for being today. Thank you again for all the people that came from different countries. It was an honor. Thank you. Muchísimas gracias a todos los que habéis venido de diferentes países. I know some of you, and probably during the next 3 days, I will meet all of you. So I know people that from Guatemala, from Ecuador, from Colombia. I see a lot of from Costa Rica, from Argentina, so also from Abu Dhabi, from also from different states, from the United States. Thank you to all of you for taking the time to come here and to listen to inspiring women and men. And well, the idea here, as they said, is to not only to connect and to inspire, but also to think, how can we do it better? So I encourage you to follow us. We will have different activities during the next 2 days, different formats. Some of them are online, some of them are in person. So you can take the possibility to meet very interesting people that we are all together passionate. We have this passion and commitment to gender equality. So thank you again, and I hope we can see all of us, each other in the next 3 days. Thank you. Bye.